I'm sitting here in my living room, staring out the window, watching the world pass me by. The sun is setting, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood, but it doesn't quite reach me. I can't help but feel a chill deep within my bones, a kind of loneliness that wraps itself around me like a heavy blanket. It's a feeling I've grown all too familiar with in my old age, but today it feels particularly suffocating. Just hours ago, my grandson, my sweet little Oliver, called me embarrassing in front of his friends. The words hung in the air, sharp and biting, like a slap to my face. I can still see the way his friends snickered, their laughter echoing in my ears, making my heart ache. "Grandma, you're so embarrassing," he had exclaimed, rolling his eyes as if I were a relic from a bygone era. I stood there, frozen, my heart sinking into the pit of my stomach. I wanted to tell him that I was just trying to be the fun grandma, the one who baked cookies and told silly stories. But instead, all I could do was smile weakly and wave goodbye as he ran off, leaving me standing alone on the porch, feeling invisible. Before I continue, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to know how far my story reaches. This isn't the first time I felt this way, of course. Loneliness has a way of creeping into the corners of my life, especially now that my friends have passed on or moved away. My family has become distant, busy with their own lives, and I often find myself wondering if they even think of me at all. I remember a time when my home was filled with laughter and love, when my children would run through the halls, their voices echoing like music. But now, the silence is deafening. As I sit here, I can't help but reflect on the years that have gone by. I've watched as my children grew up, moved out, and started families of their own. I was there for their milestones, birthdays, graduations, weddings, but as the years slipped away, I found myself on the sidelines, watching their lives unfold without me. I used to be their world, but now I feel like a mere spectator, a shadow of the woman I once was. I remember the day Oliver was born, the joy that filled my heart as I held him for the first time. He was so small, so perfect, and I vowed to be the best grandmother I could be. I wanted to create memories with him, to be the one he turned to for advice and comfort. But now, I'm just a source of embarrassment. The thought stings more than I care to admit. I think back to the times I tried to connect with him, to show him that I'm still relevant, still capable of being fun. I remember taking him to the park, pushing him on the swings, and playing tag until we were both out of breath. I thought those moments would strengthen our bond, but now I wonder if they only served to highlight the age gap between us. "Grandma, can we go home now?" he had said during our last outing, his voice tinged with impatience as he glanced at his phone. "I want to play video games with my friends." I had smiled, but inside I felt a piece of my heart shatter. I wanted to be a part of his world, but it seemed like I was just an obstacle in the way of his fun. The feeling of being unwanted is a heavy burden to bear. I often replay moments like these in my mind, trying to understand where I went wrong. Was it my insistence on sharing stories from my youth? Was it my inability to grasp the latest technology? Or was it simply the fact that I was old and he was young, and the gap between us felt insurmountable? As I sit here, I can't help but think of the injustices I've faced in my life. There were times when I fought for my place in this world, times when I felt like I was screaming into the void, only to be met with silence. I remember my own mother, who often dismissed my dreams and aspirations, telling me to focus on what really mattered, finding a husband and raising a family. I spent years trying to prove her wrong, to show her that I could be more than just a housewife. But as I grew older, I began to realize that the world had moved on without me. My accomplishments felt insignificant in the grand scheme of things,
and I found myself questioning my worth. I had dedicated my life to my family, to being the best mother and grandmother I could be, but now, as I sit here alone, I wonder if it was all in vain. I think of my friends, the ones I used to laugh and cry with, the ones who understood the struggles of aging. They've all faded away, leaving me with only memories of our shared laughter and tears. I remember the last time we gathered for tea, how we reminisced about the past, our conversations filled with warmth and nostalgia. But now, those moments feel like a distant dream, a fleeting memory that I can't quite grasp. Sometimes I wonder if I've become a burden to my family. I don't want to be the old woman who clings to her loved ones, begging for attention and affection.
I want to be strong, to show them that I can take care of myself. But the truth is, I'm scared. I'm scared of being forgotten, of being left behind. The world has changed so much since I was young. The pace of life is faster. The connections people make are often superficial, and the values I once held dear seem to have evaporated into thin air. I long for the days when family meant everything, when we gathered around the dinner table and shared our lives with one another. Now it feels like we're all just going through the motions, caught up in our own lives, forgetting the importance of connection. I shake my head, trying to dispel the dark thoughts that threaten to consume me. I know I shouldn't dwell on the past, but it's hard not to when the present feels so empty. I glance at the clock on the wall, the hands ticking away, each second a reminder of how quickly time passes. I wonder if Oliver will come back, if he'll remember the fun we used to have, and want to share those moments with me again. But as I sit here, the weight of my loneliness settles heavily on my shoulders. I can't help but feel like a ghost in my own life, a mere spectator to the joy and laughter that once filled my home. I want to reach out, to connect, but the fear of rejection holds me back. What if he calls me embarrassing again? What if he turns away, leaving me standing alone once more? Just then, I catch a glimpse of something shining beneath the coffee table, a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. I lean down, my heart racing, as I pull out an old, dusty box. It's a keepsake box, one I haven't opened in years. The memories flood back as I run my fingers over the worn surface, the familiar weight of nostalgia pulling me in. Inside, I find trinkets from my past, old photographs, letters, and mementos that tell the story of my life. I can't help but smile as I sift through the items, each one a reminder of the moments that shaped me. I find a faded photograph of my wedding day, my husband looking dapper in his suit, and me, a young bride filled with dreams. As I hold the photo in my hands, I'm reminded of the love we shared, the struggles we faced together. We built a life, a family, and for a time, it felt like nothing could tear us apart. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and I was left to navigate the aftermath alone. I push the thought aside, focusing on the box in front of me. There's something else buried beneath the memories, something that feels significant. I dig deeper and pull out a small, intricately carved wooden box. It's beautiful, the craftsmanship exquisite, and I can't help but wonder about its origins. As I open the box, I'm greeted by a delicate silver locket, its surface gleaming in the fading light. I hold it up to the window, the light catching it just right, and for a moment, I'm lost in its beauty. But as I examine it closer, I realize it's not just a piece of jewelry. It's a connection to my past, a symbol of something I've long forgotten. I can't remember when I received it or who gave it to me, but I feel a pull, a sense of urgency to uncover its story. This locket could hold the key to understanding my family, the secrets that have been buried for far too long. I feel a spark of determination igniting within me, pushing me to dig deeper, to confront the memories I've tucked away for so long. As I sit here, the warmth of the sun fading into twilight, I can't shake the feeling that this discovery is the beginning of something transformative.
I may be old, but I'm not ready to give up just yet. I've spent too long feeling invisible, too long allowing others to define my worth. It's time to reclaim my story, to piece together the fragments of my life, and perhaps, just perhaps, find a way to reconnect with my family. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the locket in my hand, and I know that I'm ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery. I won't let the fear of being embarrassing hold me back any longer. It's time to face the past, to confront the injustices that have shaped me, and to embrace the hope that lies ahead. As I close the box, I can't help but feel a sense of anticipation. The road ahead may be uncertain, but I'm determined to uncover the truth, to find my place in this world once more. And maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to share my story with Oliver, to show him that there's more to me than the label of embarrassing. With renewed resolve, I put the locket around my neck, feeling its weight against my heart. I'm ready to face whatever comes next, ready to confront the secrets of my past and reclaim my place in my family's story. The journey won't be easy, but I know that it's one worth taking. And as I look out the window, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the night sky, I can't help but feel a glimmer of hope for the future. I often find myself staring out of the window, watching the world go by, feeling like a ghost in my own life. The laughter of children playing outside, the chatter of families gathering for dinner, it all seems so distant to me now. I remember a time when I was a part of that world, full of joy and laughter, when I felt loved and cherished. But those days feel like a lifetime ago. I sit in my cozy little living room, surrounded by the remnants of a life once vibrant, now reduced to memories that haunt me like shadows. It was just a few days ago when my grandson, Oliver, called me embarrassing in front of his friends. I can still hear his voice, the way he said it, dripping with disdain. It pierced my heart like a dagger. I had been trying to share a story, a little anecdote from my youth, hoping to connect with him, to show him that I was more than just a frail old woman. But instead, I was become the punchline of a joke. I felt my cheeks flush with humiliation, the sting of his words echoing in my mind long after he had left the room. "Grandma, you're so embarrassing," he had exclaimed, laughing with his friends. I had wanted to sink into the floor, to disappear entirely. Instead, I forced a smile, pretending it didn't hurt, pretending I wasn't crushed beneath the weight of his words. But inside, I was screaming. Why can't he see me for who I am? Why does he only see my age? I wondered. The loneliness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, suffocating and cold. I had spent so many years pouring my love into my family, only to feel like a relic, an afterthought. As I sat there, tears brimming in my eyes, I couldn't help but reflect on the years that had led me to this moment. I thought back to my childhood, a time when I was full of dreams and aspirations. I was the eldest of 3 siblings, and my parents had high hopes for me. I remember my mother's gentle voice encouraging me to pursue my passions, to never let anyone dim my light. But life had a way of throwing curveballs, and the dreams I once held so dear slowly faded into the background. My father was a stern man, a hard worker, who believed in discipline and sacrifice. He loved us in his own way, but he often struggled to express it. I remember the long hours he spent at the factory, the way he would come home exhausted, too tired to engage with us. My mother would fill the void, showering us with affection, but there was always a sense of something missing. I longed for my father's approval, his acknowledgement of my worth, but it never came. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" he would say, his voice laced with disappointment. My younger brother was the golden child, the one who excelled in everything he did. I felt invisible next to him, constantly overshadowed by his achievements. My sister, on the other hand, was the peacemaker, always trying to keep the family together.
I often felt like an outsider in my own home, yearning for validation that never came. As I grew older, the feeling of invisibility only intensified. I remember the day I graduated high school, standing on that stage, my heart racing with excitement. I had worked so hard, but when I looked out into the crowd, I saw my parents' faces etched with worry. They were concerned about my future, about whether I would be able to make something of myself. My father's stern gaze made me feel like I was standing on trial rather than celebrating my accomplishments. "Just make sure you don't end up like your mother," he had said, his words hanging in the air like a dark cloud. I could feel the weight of his expectations pressing down on me, suffocating my joy. I had always wanted to make him proud, but it felt like a never-ending battle, one I was destined to lose. Years passed, and I eventually found love. I married a kind man who adored me, but even then, I often felt like I was living in the shadow of others. My husband was charismatic and charming, the life of every party. I admired him for that, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was merely an accessory to his life. I supported him in everything he did, but I often wondered if he truly saw me, or if I was just a figure in the background of his vibrant world. When Oliver was born, I felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this time I could be the grandmother I had always dreamed of being. I poured my heart and soul into him, sharing stories of my past, teaching him about love and life. I wanted him to know that he was cherished, that he mattered. But now, hearing him call me embarrassing shattered that dream. I sat in silence, the weight of my memories crashing down on me like a tidal wave. I thought of all the times I had tried to connect with Oliver, to show him that I was more than just an old woman. I had taken him to the park, shared my favorite recipes, and even attempted to learn about his interests. But each time, it felt like I was reaching out to a wall, my efforts met with indifference. "Why can't he understand?" I whispered to myself, tears streaming down my face. "Why can't he see the love I have for him?" It felt like I was fighting a losing battle, desperately trying to break through the barriers of age and misunderstanding. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself retreating further into my shell. I stopped reaching out to Oliver, afraid of being rejected again. I spent my days alone, lost in my thoughts, replaying the moment over and over in my mind. I wanted to confront him, to tell him how his words had hurt me, but the fear of further embarrassment held me back. One evening, as I sat in my favorite armchair, the locket resting against my chest, I felt a flicker of determination ignite within me. I realized that I couldn't let his words define me. I had spent too long allowing others to dictate my worth, and it was time to reclaim my narrative. I picked up the phone and called my sister, hoping for some comfort. "Hello, dear," she said, her voice warm and familiar. "How are you?" "I'm okay," I replied, forcing a smile even though she couldn't see me. "Just trying to figure some things out." "What's on your mind?" she asked gently. I hesitated, unsure of how to voice my feelings. "It's Oliver," I finally admitted. "He called me embarrassing in front of his friends, and it hurt more than I can say." "Oh, sweetheart," she said softly. "Kids can be thoughtless. They don't always understand the impact of their words. You've always been a wonderful grandmother." "I know, but it's just, I feel invisible," I confessed, my voice trembling, "like I'm fading away and no one notices." "Listen to me," she said firmly. "You are not invisible. You have so much love to give, and it's time to show Oliver that you are more than just his grandmother. You have a story to tell, and it's one worth sharing." Her words resonated with me, igniting a fire within. I realized that I had been so focused on how others perceived me that I had forgotten the power of my own story. I had lived a life filled with challenges and triumphs, and it was time to embrace that legacy. That night, as I lay in bed, I made a decision.
I would confront Oliver, not with anger or resentment, but with love and understanding. I would share my story, the struggles I had faced, and the lessons I had learned. I wanted him to see me not just as his grandmother, but as a woman who had lived, loved, and fought for her place in this world. The next day, I called Oliver and asked him to come over.
My heart raced with anticipation and fear as I prepared for our conversation. I wanted to create a safe space for him, a place where we could connect on a deeper level. When he arrived, I could see the hesitation in his eyes. "Hey, Grandma," he said, his voice uncertain. "Hi, Oliver," I replied, gesturing for him to sit down. "I wanted to talk to you about something important." He looked at me, curiosity flickering in his gaze. "Okay." I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I know you called me embarrassing the other day," I began, my voice steady but gentle, "and I want you to know that it hurt me deeply." He shifted in his seat, looking down at the floor. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Grandma," he mumbled. "I know," I said softly, "but I want you to understand that I've lived a long life, filled with experiences that have shaped who I am. I'm not just an old woman. I'm a person with a story." As I shared my memories, my childhood struggles, my dreams that had been dashed, and the love I had for him, I could see his expression change. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with realization. "Grandma, I didn't know," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'm sorry for what I said. I didn't think about how it would make you feel." I smiled, feeling the weight of my heart lift. "It's okay, Oliver. I just want you to know that you matter to me, and I want to be a part of your life. I want to share my stories with you, to show you that there's more to me than what meets the eye." As we talked, I could see the barriers between us begin to crumble. He listened intently, his eyes filled with understanding. I felt a sense of connection that had been missing for far too long. In that moment, I realized that I wasn't just reclaiming my story, I was also opening the door for Oliver to see me in a new light. I could feel the love between us growing stronger, the bonds of family weaving tighter. After our conversation, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I wanted to share my story not just with Oliver, but with others as well. I wanted to inspire those who felt invisible, those who had been cast aside by a society that often overlooks the elderly. I began writing down my memories, pouring my heart onto the pages. I wanted to create something meaningful, a legacy that would live on long after I was gone. I wanted my family to know that I had fought for my place in this world, that I had endured and triumphed over adversity. As I immersed myself in my writing, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. I was no longer just a grandmother. I was a storyteller, a woman with a voice that deserved to be heard. I was reclaiming my narrative, and it felt exhilarating. Days turned into weeks, and Oliver and I grew closer. We spent time together, exploring my past and sharing our dreams for the future. I could see him changing too, becoming more empathetic and understanding. I felt like I was finally being seen, not just as grandma, but as a person with depth and complexity. One afternoon, as we sat together in the garden, I handed him the locket I had found. "This belonged to someone dear to me," I said, watching as he examined it closely. "It's a reminder of the love that has been passed down through generations." He looked up at me, his eyes shining with curiosity. "Can you tell me about it?" And so I began to share the story of the locket, weaving together the threads of my family's history. I watched as he absorbed every word, the connection between us growing stronger with each passing moment. In that garden, surrounded by the blooming flowers, I felt a sense of hope blossom within me. I realized that despite the challenges I had faced, I had the power to shape my narrative. I could break free from the chains of invisibility and embrace the beauty of my story.
As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over our conversation, I knew that this was just the beginning. I was ready to face the world, to share my journey with others, and to inspire those who felt lost and forgotten. With Oliver by my side, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer just a relic of the past. I was a vibrant force of love and resilience, ready to embrace whatever came next. And as I looked into my grandson's eyes, I knew that together we would create a new legacy, one filled with understanding, compassion, and hope. The journey ahead may be uncertain, but I was ready to face it head on. I had reclaimed my story, and in doing so, I had found my place in this world once more. I was no longer just a grandmother. I was a storyteller, a survivor, and a beacon of hope for generations to come. And as I closed my eyes that night, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had faced my fears, confronted my past, and emerged stronger than ever. The road ahead may be long, but I was ready to embrace it with open arms. I had found my voice, and I would never let anyone silence me again. As I sat in the garden with Oliver, the locket still warm in his hands, I felt a stirring within me, a sense of purpose that had long been dormant. The sun was beginning to dip low in the sky, casting a soft golden light that danced among the flowers. I could see the curiosity in Oliver's eyes, and it ignited a spark within me. I wanted to share more than just the story of the locket. I wanted to share the legacy it represented, the love and resilience that had been passed down through generations. Oliver, I began, my voice steady yet filled with emotion. This locket belonged to your great-grandmother. Her name was Eleanor, and she was a woman of incredible strength. I paused, allowing the weight of her name to settle in the air between us. She faced many challenges in her life, but she never let them define her. She always believed in the power of love and family, and she passed that belief on to me. As I spoke, I could see Oliver leaning in closer, his attention fully captured. "What kind of challenges?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he feared breaking the spell of our moment. I took a deep breath, drawing on the memories that had shaped my life. Eleanor married young, and while she found love, she also faced the harsh realities of life. There were times when food was scarce, and the world seemed to close in around her. But she never lost hope. She would gather us around the table, telling stories of dreams and possibilities, reminding us that we were stronger together. I could feel the tears prickling at the corners of my eyes as I recalled her laughter, her warmth, and the way she made the world feel safe, even in the darkest of times. She taught me that our worth isn't measured by the challenges we face, but by how we rise above them. And that is something I want you to carry with you, Oliver. You are part of a legacy of love and strength. He nodded, processing my words, and I could see the understanding dawning in his eyes. "Did you ever feel embarrassed by her?" he asked, a hint of innocence in his voice. I chuckled softly, wiping away a stray tear. "Sometimes, yes. You see, Eleanor was a woman ahead of her time. She didn't conform to the expectations of society. She was loud, passionate, and unafraid to speak her mind. There were moments when I wished she would tone it down, especially when I was a teenager. But looking back, I realized that her spirit was exactly what I needed. She taught me to embrace who I am, to be proud of my story." As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the garden, I felt a sense of urgency to share more. "There's something else you should know, Oliver. Eleanor had a secret, a deep, painful secret that she carried with her until the end. It's a part of our family history that has been buried for too long. I've spent years trying to piece it together, and I think I'm finally ready to confront it." Oliver's eyes widened with curiosity. "What is it, Grandma? What was her secret?" I hesitated, the weight of the truth pressing down on my heart. "It's about your great-grandfather, Harold. Their love story was not as perfect as it seemed. They had their share of struggles, and there was a darkness that lingered in their marriage, one that I've only begun to understand. Oliver's eyes widened with curiosity. "What is it, Grandma? What was her secret?" I hesitated, the weight of the truth pressing down on my heart. "It's about your great-grandfather Harold. Their love story was not as perfect as it seemed. They had their share of struggles, and there was a darkness that lingered in their marriage, one that I've only begun to understand." I could see the tension in Oliver's expression, a mix of intrigue and concern. What happened? Harold was a good man, but he battled demons that he couldn't escape. He had a temper, and there were moments when he let it get the best of him. Eleanor stayed by his side, believing that love could conquer all. But there were times when I watched her suffer, and I wished I could do something to help. I promised myself that I would never allow myself to be trapped in a situation like that. The memories flooded back, vivid and raw. I remembered the nights when Eleanor would sit by the window, staring into the darkness, her heart heavy with unspoken words. I remembered the way she would smile through her pain, trying to shield us from the storms of her life. It's a part of our family story that has been silenced for too long, and I want you to know that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to acknowledge the struggles. They don't define us. They shape us. Oliver was silent for a moment, absorbing my words. "So, what do we do with this story?" he asked, his voice steady. "How do we honor her?" I smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. By sharing it, by breaking the silence that has surrounded it for so long. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. We can ensure that future generations know that it's okay to be vulnerable, to seek help, and to embrace their truth. As I spoke, I felt a sense of liberation. The locket in Oliver's hands was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of our family's resilience, a reminder that we are all interconnected through our stories. This is your legacy too, Oliver. You have the power to create change, to be a voice for those who feel unheard. He looked at me with a newfound determination. "I want to help, Grandma. I want to share our family's story." I reached out and took his hands in mine, feeling the warmth of his spirit. "And you will. Together, we will honor Eleanor's memory and ensure that her story lives on. We will break the cycle of silence and allow love to guide us." As the last rays of sunlight faded, I felt a sense of peace settle around us. I had confronted my past, and in doing so, I had found a way to connect with my grandson on a deeper level. The locket was just the beginning of our journey, a journey filled with love, understanding, and the courage to face the truth. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't help but reflect on the power of our stories. They are the threads that weave us together, binding generations in a tapestry of shared experiences. I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my heart. I had taken the first step in confronting the secrets of my family, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The following days were filled with a sense of purpose. Oliver and I began to research our family history, delving into old photographs, letters, and records. Each discovery brought us closer together, and I could see how much he was learning. He was not just my grandson. He was becoming my partner in this journey of healing. One afternoon, as we sat in the living room, surrounded by scattered papers and memories, Oliver held up a faded photograph of Eleanor and Harold. "They look so happy here," he said, studying the image intently. "But I can see the sadness in her eyes." I nodded, feeling the ache of recognition. She wore her heart on her sleeve, even when it was heavy with sorrow. But she also had a light within her that shone brightly. I want you to remember that, Oliver. It's okay to feel pain, but it's equally important to find joy. We spent hours talking about Eleanor's life, her dreams, and her struggles. I shared stories of her laughter, her love for gardening, and the way she would sing softly while tending to her flowers. She had a way of finding beauty in the simplest things, I said, my voice thick with emotion. And I think that's what kept her going. Oliver listened intently, his eyes filled with admiration. I want to be like her, Grandma. I want to find beauty in life, even when it's hard. We spent hours talking about Eleanor's life, her dreams, and her struggles. I shared stories of her laughter, her love for gardening, and the way she would sing softly while tending to her flowers. She had a way of finding beauty in the simplest things, I said, my voice thick with emotion. And I think that's what kept her going. Oliver listened intently, his eyes filled with admiration. I want to be like her, Grandma. I want to find beauty in life, even when it's hard. His words struck a chord within me. You already are, Oliver. You have that same spirit, that same resilience. Just remember to embrace who you are and never shy away from your feelings. As the days turned into weeks, I felt a shift in our relationship. We were no longer just grandmother and grandson. We were allies in this journey of discovery. I watched as Oliver grew more confident, more aware of the world around him. He began to understand the importance of empathy, compassion, and the power of sharing our stories. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, Oliver turned to me with a serious expression. Grandma, do you think we should tell the family about Eleanor's story, about what she went through? I paused, contemplating his question. I think it's important, but we must be careful. Not everyone is ready to hear the truth. We have to approach it with love and understanding, just as Eleanor would have wanted. He nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. I want to make sure her story is told, Grandma. I don't want her to be forgotten. I felt a surge of pride for my grandson. And she won't be, Oliver. Together, we will ensure that her legacy lives on. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't help but feel grateful for this newfound connection. The laughter and warmth that filled the room reminded me of the love that had always been present, even in the shadows of our past. We were creating new memories, weaving our stories together, and I felt a sense of hope blooming within me. One afternoon, as we finished a particularly intense research session, Oliver looked at me with excitement. Grandma, I found something, a letter from Eleanor to a friend. It talks about her dreams and the struggles she faced with Harold. My heart raced at the thought of uncovering more of her story. What does it say? He unfolded the letter, his voice trembling with anticipation. She wrote about wanting to break free, to find her own voice. She mentioned feeling trapped, but also expressed hope for the future. It's beautiful, Grandma. Tears filled my eyes as I listened to Oliver read the words aloud. Eleanor's voice resonated through time, and I could feel her spirit surrounding us. She wanted to be heard, I whispered, my heart swelling with emotion. And now we can honor her by sharing her truth. In that moment, I realized that our journey was about more than just uncovering the past. It was about healing, understanding, and breaking the cycle of silence that had lingered for too long. We were reclaiming our family's narrative, one word at a time. As the weeks passed, we continued to explore Eleanor's story, piecing together the fragments of her life. I felt a sense of urgency to share what we had learned with the rest of the family, but I also knew that we needed to approach it delicately. Not everyone would understand, and I didn't want to cause pain. One evening, as we gathered for a family dinner, I felt a knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. I glanced at Oliver, who sat across the table, his eyes filled with encouragement. "You can do this, Grandma," he whispered, as if sensing my apprehension. As the conversation flowed around the table, I took a deep breath and spoke up. "I'd like to share something important with all of you," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "It's about our family history, about Eleanor and Harold." The room fell silent, and I could feel the weight of their attention on me. I've been researching our past, and I believe it's time we acknowledge the struggles and secrets that have shaped us. I watched as my family exchanged glances, some intrigued, others apprehensive. Eleanor was a remarkable woman, but she faced challenges that many of us may not know about. She lived through a difficult marriage, and her story is one of resilience and strength. As I spoke, I could see the curiosity growing in their expressions. She wanted to break free, to find her voice, and I believe it's time for us to honor her by sharing her truth. The room was filled with a mixture of emotions: surprise, sadness, and a sense of understanding. I could see my daughter's eyes glistening with tears as she processed the weight of our family's history. "I had no idea, Mom," she said softly. "I wish I had known." I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. And that's why it's important for us to talk about these things. We can't let fear or shame silence us any longer. We must embrace our stories, both the light and the dark. Oliver chimed in, his voice filled with conviction. "Eleanor's story is a part of us, and we should celebrate her strength. We can learn from her experiences and ensure that future generations know the truth." As the conversation unfolded, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. We were breaking the cycle of silence, allowing love and understanding to guide our discussions. I watched as my family began to share their own stories, their own struggles, and in that moment, I felt a profound sense of connection. After dinner, as we gathered in the living room, I could see the change in the atmosphere. We were no longer just a family. We were a community of storytellers, united by our shared experiences. I felt a sense of hope blooming within me, knowing that we were forging a new path together. In the days that followed, I watched as my family began to embrace the lessons we had learned from Eleanor. We started to have open conversations about our feelings, our dreams, and our fears. The walls of silence that had once surrounded us were slowly crumbling, replaced by a newfound sense of understanding and compassion. One afternoon, as I sat with Oliver in the garden, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. "You know, Oliver," I said, my voice filled with warmth, "I never thought I would be able to share Eleanor's story with the family. But now I feel like we're all connected in a way that we never were before." He smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "It's because we're breaking the silence, Grandma. We're allowing her story to live on, and that makes us stronger." I nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude for my grandson. "You've been my partner in this journey, Oliver. You've helped me find my voice, and I'm so proud of you." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had faced the shadows of our past, and in doing so, we had created a legacy of love and understanding. I knew that Eleanor would be proud of us, and I felt her spirit guiding us as we continued to share our stories. In the weeks that followed, I found myself more connected to my family than ever before. The conversations we had were filled with laughter, tears, and a sense of belonging. We were no longer just individuals. We were a tapestry of shared experiences, woven together by the threads of love and resilience. One evening, as we gathered for a family meeting, I felt a sense of excitement in the air. "I think it's time we do something special," I said, my heart racing. "Let's create a family book, a collection of our stories, our struggles, and our triumphs. We can honor Eleanor and ensure that her legacy lives on." Oliver's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "That's a great idea, Grandma. We can each contribute our stories and memories, and it will be a way to celebrate our family." As we brainstormed ideas for the book, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. We were not just preserving our history, we were actively shaping our future. I could see the excitement in my family's eyes as they began to share their thoughts and ideas. We spent hours discussing the format, the design, and the stories we wanted to include. Each family member took turns sharing their experiences, and I watched as the bonds between us grew stronger. We were creating something meaningful, a testament to our resilience and love. As the weeks turned into months, we worked diligently on the family book. It became a labor of love, filled with laughter, tears, and moments of vulnerability. I watched as my family poured their hearts into their contributions, each story adding depth and richness to our collective narrative. One afternoon, as we gathered to review the final draft, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. "This is incredible," I said, my voice thick with tears. "We've created something beautiful together." Oliver smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "We did it, Grandma! We honored Eleanor's legacy, and we've created a space for our voices to be heard." As we held the finished book in our hands, I felt a sense of fulfillment that I had never experienced before. We had faced the shadows of our past, and in doing so, we had forged a new path forward, one filled with love, understanding, and the courage to share our stories. In that moment, I realized that I had found my place in this world once more. I was no longer just a grandmother. I was a storyteller, a survivor, and a beacon of hope for generations to come. I had reclaimed my narrative, and in doing so, I had created a legacy that would endure. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had faced my fears, confronted my past, and emerged stronger than ever. The road ahead may be long, but I was ready to embrace it with open arms. I had found my voice, and I would never let anyone silence me again. And as I reflected on our journey, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for Oliver. He had been my guiding light, helping me navigate the complexities of our family's history. Together, we had created something beautiful, a testament to the power of love and resilience. In the days that followed, I made it a point to share our family book with others. I wanted to inspire those who felt lost and forgotten, just as I once had. I wanted them to know that they were not alone, that their stories mattered, and that it was never too late to reclaim their narratives. Through our journey, I had learned that the power of storytelling could heal wounds and bridge gaps. It could create connections that transcended time and space, allowing us to honor those who came before us while embracing our own truths. As I stood in the garden one afternoon, surrounded by the blooming flowers, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to face the world, to share my journey with others, and to inspire those who felt lost and forgotten. I had reclaimed my story, and I was determined to ensure that it would be heard. With Oliver by my side, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, we would continue to honor Eleanor's legacy, sharing our family's story with the world. We would break the silence that had lingered for too long, allowing love and understanding to guide our way. And as I looked into my grandson's eyes, I knew that together we would create a new legacy, one filled with understanding, compassion, and hope. The journey ahead may be uncertain, but I was ready to embrace it head-on. I had found my voice, and I would never let anyone silence me again. If my story touched you, subscribe to the channel and share it so more people never give up on hope.